Have you ever heard of aerophobia? Well, if you haven't, aerophobia means the fear of flying. It's a phobia. In other words, you're afraid of it. And if you didn't suffer from aerophobia in the past, the chances are you probably are afraid now. But why is that? Why are we afraid of flying? Who planted that seed into our unconscious mind? Where did this fear come from? And is flying still safe? Well, let's find out. Starting right now.
Analyzing the news.
If you've been watching the news recently, you would have heard that the climatization and the weather patterns are changing, which is causing planes to be at higher flight risk. In other words, if you get on a plane, you're probably going to crash and burn forever. Oh. Now, if you don't believe me, check this out.
Tonight, another terrifying episode of violent turbulence, this time on a flight from Doha to Dublin. 12 people were hurt on that Qatar Airways flight. 8 had to be hospitalized. Here's how some of the passengers described that moment.
It was there in your mind.
That episode that happened last week, of course, was the severe turbulence on a Singapore Airlines flight that left more than 100 people injured, 43 of them still in the hospital tonight. 28 people suffered spinal, brain, and skull injuries when they were thrown from their seats. Keith Davis and his wife, Carrie, were on that Singapore Airlines flight. She suffered a severe spine injury, and Keith Davis is out front now. Keith, we see you there. You're still bandaged, still in your hospital bed there in Bangkok. How are you doing tonight?
Erica.
Okay, when it's presented to us in that way, it's done in a way to grab our attention and instill fear into us. Why are they trying to frighten us? All we want to do is go on holiday. Okay, let's turn the tables and listen to the opinion of a pilot who's got 30 years experience in flying a plane. I think he'll know a little bit more than the old news anchor, don't you?
But we are seeing more extreme weather events, aren't we?
Yeah, but the media's also picking it up and dramatising it. The dramatisation that the aeroplane plunged 6,000 feet.
Right, and does turbulence ever bring down a flight altogether? Like, would you make that decision at any stage and go, right, we're going to lower down and then bring the plane?
We try and find the smoothest air.
Right.
Purely for comfort.
So there you go. Flying is perfectly safe. Just wear your seatbelt. It's not that hard, is it?
It is basically one of the safest forms of travel still. There's no doubt. There's always a risk in wherever you go, on a bus, on a train, on an aeroplane, there's always a risk. But as we say, these situations are very, very rare. Turbulence is just a thing that happens, as you say, it's the air currents, etc. The best thing to do, make sure all your luggage is securely stowed, as the cabin crew tell you. Keep your seatbelts on loosely while you're just...
It feels like the safety demo suddenly.
And, and the exits are here.
Did you know that the average commercial flight per day is over 97,000? That means there's 97 flights per day as we speak. And the chances of you actually dying in a plane is 13.4 million. And that's a 1% chance. Okay, sometimes aeroplanes experience what we call turbulence. That's when they wobble. But it's okay. As long as you've got your seatbelt on, you'll be fine. Because the seatbelt keeps you in your seat. And a turbulence can go upside down. But it's completely natural. And I'll explain why that is. Check this out. Frequent flyers will be familiar with the sudden jolting that can happen when an aircraft gets into turbulence. It can move the plane and cause sudden changes in height, and most turbulence occurs in the clouds, where there are up and down drafts of wind, according to the BBC's weather Simon King, as well as a former RAF officer. I think he knows what he's talking about, don't you? Let me go in a bit more detail just to calm your anxiety. You'll like this. So what is turbulence? It's a sudden or violent shift in airflow. It's basically the wind. So as the plane flies, it's hit by winds. You've got fast wind, slow wind, windy places. That's why planes tend to fly above the clouds. The causes of turbulence could be wind, storms, jet streams, or objects near the plane, particularly mountain ranges. In other words, you're more likely to get turbulence when you're flying over the mountains. But if you're flying around Europe, you'll be more than likely fine. Here's another little thing for you. You'll like this. Don't think for 1 minute that the pilot doesn't know what he's doing. He's in a thing called a cockpit. Do you know what a cockpit is? This is what it looks like. A cockpit is an operation field where both pilots have full control every second of every minute of every moment that they're in control of that vehicle. As well as that, they have groundsmen, and them groundsmen are communicating with the pilot all of the time. The pilots are also communicating with other pilots who are in the sky, and they're all communicating together, letting each other know where the strong winds are and the chance of turbulence are. They know what they're doing. They've got a map. They can predict the weather because they've got the technology to forecast it. So when they have to go through turbulence, if they feel it's safe to do so, what they'll do is tell everybody in the plane to tick, tick, put your seatbelt on. We're going to go through a bit of turbulence. In other words, it's going to get a little bit bumpy. Put your seatbelt on, you'll be fine.
And we can talk to other pilots, certainly across the Atlantic, or where we've got a chat frequency, if you like.
Right.
And we'll say anybody on track Charlie at 370 or the 37,000 feet, we're getting a little bit of turbulence, and they'll say, well, it's a little bit smoother at 31,000. Okay. And we might go and try that.
Yeah.
So you're all communicating all the
I
time.
love that idea, all these pilots looking after us at the same time.
We want smooth air because we worry about spilling our tea.
Now, recently, if you heard in the news, there was a death because this turbulence that happened on a flight was that bad that someone died. But what the media don't tell you is the person who died of a heart attack, and he was 74 years old. But there were other people in that plane and they got minor injuries. So what caused the minor injuries? They didn't have the seatbelt on. And that's why when the plane dropped, they went up and they hit their head on the ceiling. If they had their belt on, they'd be fine. But they didn't. And that's why they were injured. Flying is perfectly safe. Just keep your seatbelt on and make sure you've got your stuff put up on top of you in that little cabinet thing that you lock, and you'll be fine. And that's it. So to answer your question, is flying safe? Of course it is. It's very safe. I hope this video helps you if you're planning on going on a holiday and you feel a bit, ugh, because I don't like flying myself. I get a little bit nervous and turbulence scares me. But because I've researched this video and I'm presenting it to you, it's actually calmed me down now, because now I understand the science behind it. I understand how the weather works. So turbulence is just wind, and pilots are fully aware of it, and it doesn't stop them. It's not a threat. It's not dangerous. It's just wind. There you go. Until next time, guys, I will see you soon. Take care of yourself and be positive. You only live once.